Hey everyone, we are back. Well, I'm back. I say we as if I got multiple personalities. Um, so we're back with chapter 9 of the 12 Laws of the Universe by Manhardeep Singh. And this is the law of relativity. Um, and it says it's all relative. And that's funny because I love saying that to people. It's all relative. Okay, let's see. We got chapter 9. We have chapter 10. I forget how many are in here. 11, 12, and then after 12, I believe we have the conclusion. So we're winding down on this book, The 12 Laws of the Universe, and then we'll be moving into the next one. I don't know which one that's going to be yet, but I'll talk about that once we get closer to the end. So let's start with the law of relativity, and it's all relative. Imagine this. You wake up early in the morning and find it unusually bright. Only then did you realize that the iPhone alarm did not ring. The cable was not plugged in correctly, and now the phone is dead. You are half an hour late for work. You struggle, but you always make time for your favorite daily ritual, which makes everything better. Morning American coffee from a local cafe. But today, of course, it was Dwayne, the half-wit barista, who messed up your order again, and you ended up with a cup of mocha. Then, while you were rushing to work, you receive a speeding ticket. Most people will agree that this is a bad start to the day, but George, the homeless man sitting outside the cafe that you may not have even noticed, would be happy to swap place with you at the time. He has no bed to wake up in, no iPhone to charge, no job to be late for, and no money for coffee or a car to speed in. If you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. If you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. If you look at what you don't have in life, you'll never have enough. And that's by Oprah Winfrey. This law reminds us that experiences are not good or bad, they are neutral. It is our human perceptions, which is our emotions, our thoughts, and our judgments, that evaluate experiences, and comparing them is the reason for creating good and bad labels. Now, I'm not saying that we all go out and remove our brains, but the law is a reminder of the power of perception. Use this insight to your advantage. A good or bad situation is not a fundamental truth. It is just a perception you experience based on comparing this experience with something else. Some advice: looking at a bad situation from a different perception can actually help you transmute it into gratitude. No matter how bad it is for you, someone will always be in a worse situation. Rather than feeling like a victim, reframe it to feel gratitude. When looking at things in isolation, the law of relativity is related to the neutrality of things. Therefore, no particular person, experience, emotion, or behavior is evaluated as good or bad before comparing it to something else. For example, you may think you are poor, but it may also be because you have 3 wealthy uncles. By keeping this law in mind, you can pay attention to the fact that no matter what happens to you, there will always be multiple perspectives. Trying to see through these different perspectives can make you more grateful, and can also tell you where you can improve your life. This law states that we tend to compare things in the world, but in reality, everything is neutral. Relativism exists in everything. Ultimately, meaning comes down to our perspective and our perception. Applying this law can help us understand the most difficult parts of our lives with greater compassion. For example, if we feel ungrateful about our living situation, it could be because we are comparing our arrangements with someone else's. On the other hand, it would be better if we appreciate what we have without having to compare it with something else. There is nothing good or bad, nor is anyone born good or bad. Everything is a series of expressions, and there is more than one point of view for any situation or challenge. In other words, we are the ones who give meaning to things, so we can choose to see things as bad or good for us. And that was a short chapter, but I do have some things to say about it. One is, when we have those bad days, or we get really frustrated about something, and perspective is a lot of it. And I read the book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and I remember something specific for, I think it was that was the book it was from. And the author says your mood has a lot to do with it also. So let's say you're in a terrible mood. You're coming home from work. You're like, oh, my boss is terrible, or my job is awful. I have to, pay the mortgage. My house is dirty. Just things like that. But yet you're coming home. Your day could be exactly the same, but you're in a good mood. You don't think about any of that stuff. You think, oh, work was okay today. Oh, my boss is all right. Could be better, could be worse. Oh, I guess I'll just pick up the house when I get home. You suddenly, when you're in a good mood or a good frame of mind, you're just looking at things different. Your perspective is completely different. And I try to remind myself of that. Like if I'm in a bad mood and I start thinking of, I don't know what example really, but my life isn't bad. I recognize I'm in a bad mood, and I need to look at it again when I'm in a better mood, because everything is relative. You shift your perspective. As far as relativity, I like how he talks about that we really create this in ourselves, like the comparison. I know for a fact, this is me personally, if I didn't have access to everything I do, as far as seeing, let's say, different different properties. Okay. So if this is what I had, and the house I live in, I live in a city per se, a residential city. So I don't have a lot of land. I have, it's a lot of, I've had people say, oh, you've got a nice big backyard. And I come from the country, and I think that nice big backyard, I don't have anything. So again, that's perspective. But if I didn't know better, I shouldn't say know better, but if I didn't know or grow up that way, where I experienced that in the country and I didn't know that existed, to me, this would be great. This would be a big backyard. I would be excited about it. But I know, I grew up in the country. I knew we had acres of land. I know that exists. So now I want that, and I don't look at this as it being that great. Where there's someone else who they wish they could have this. Not that I don't live in a palace. I don't, it's not like I'm living in the lap of luxury by any means. But I do, I have a comfortable home. I have a home that fits, my husband, my children, me, all our animals. So we have space. I know I can put food on my table. I know, I have a job I can sign on to, in the mornings. My husband has a good job. My kids are healthy. My husband and I are healthy. My family, for the most part, my sisters and stuff are healthy. And that all makes me really, really happy. But when you start looking at what everybody else has, that's when I think we start, it changes. We start saying, well, how come that person seems so happy? And I think social media nowadays, and I've told my kids this when they get frustrated, I said social media and the internet, basically, while it has a lot of good qualities, don't come for me. I'm not saying they're bad things necessarily, but I think especially, and I know it's affected me. I'm aware of this in some ways, but I told my kids, I said, social media really has you thinking you need to be on the go doing all these great things constantly. I said, that isn't what people are doing. I said, people are only posting a 30-second snippet of doing something and you don't even know how real that is because so much of it is staged. I said, it's okay to not have a lot to do. It's okay to be kind of bored. It's okay to say I'm not going anywhere on a Friday night. I said you don't have to be out doing all these grand things. I said, but because you see this and you see these people you know from school posting something, I said that isn't necessarily life. Now, when I grew up, and this is where the relativity I think comes in pretty good because I'm a Gen Xer, and when I grew up, we didn't have all of this. So for me to be home and playing in my backyard on a weekend, that was great for me. I didn't know kids could be doing all this other stuff, maybe going to the beaches or, going to lakes and doing all these different things because none of it was I wasn't aware of it. It wasn't posted. It wasn't in my face. So I was really happy. I had a younger sister and, in the house, and she and I during like the summers, because my older sister, she was either, going to school, working, eventually, she moved out and was, working. So my younger sister and I were, in the house all summer. And like before we got our pool and stuff, we were quite happy sitting here playing office like on the soap operas and running back and forth to each other's rooms, leaving notes on our door of I don't even know what we said. But that was fantastic. But I didn't have access to, anybody telling me they're doing all these fantastic things, even though those things may not even be what they seem. I didn't have that. So I was able, I think, to be a lot happier and content because I didn't have that comparison out there. And I know I'm rambling. I always do. But, I think if we really just kind of try to keep things in perspective, and it is hard when you're in a bad mood or things are going wrong to suddenly be grateful. It's not easy. But if you sit with it for a few minutes and then you can consciously just sort of think, okay, this isn't maybe as bad as it seems. Let me just try and turn this around and let's see what else the day brings, and go from there. And it does help. Sometimes it takes a couple of tries, but I tell you from experience that really, really does help. And to not compare yourself to others or what others have, and to really just sit with, this is okay. Where I am right now is okay. It could be worse. I could have it a lot worse than I do. And I think if you can find it in yourself to do that, just little by little, if you have to, tiny baby steps, I think you'll find that it gets easier. So, but I think this is it all being relative. I think it's just a really good chapter, and I think it's worth going through a second time. I will probably go through it again. I've already gone through, the books, so some of the chapters I have already gone through more than once. So this will be one I revisit again. So, all right. That's enough of me rambling. I will see you guys again, and we'll be going over, let's see, what's my next one? Chapter 10, the law of polarity. So I'll see you guys for chapter 10. Bye.